become the next senator for Virginia's 36th district. This debate is one of a series of debates that is being hosted by Potomac Local. The first was this past Monday for the Occoquan District School Board. This one, obviously, here this evening. The next will be the Prince William debate on October 12th for the Prince William County School Board Chairman. The 13th at the Manassas Park Community Center. That will be for the 13th House District, Don Shaw and Bob Marshall. And our last debate in our series will be in Occoquan at Lake Ridge at Lake Ridge Middle School for the Occoquan District Supervisor for Prince William County Board of Supervisors. Ernie Porta and Ruth Anderson who are running in that race. So I will now introduce you to Dr. Stephen J. Farnsworth. He is a professor of political science and international affairs and director of the Center of Leadership and Media Studies at the University of Mary Washington. He is the author and co-author of 5 books: The Global President, International Media and the U.S. Government, The Nightly News Nightmare, Media Coverage of the U.S. Presidential Elections, 1988 to 2008, Spinner-in-Chief, How Presidents Sell Their Policies and Themselves, The Mediated Presidency, Television News, and the Presidential Governance and Political Support. Excuse me, 1 second. In Frustrated America. And a frustrated computer user will error back up to where he lost his place. He's also the author or co-author of dozens of scholarly articles on the presidency, the mass media, U.S. public opinion, and Virginia politics. His political commentary has appeared in a wide range of media outlets, including the New York Times, the Washington Post, PBS NewsHour, Politico, C-SPAN, and BBC World. Dr. Farnsworth holds a PhD from Georgetown. Welcome, Dr. Farnsworth. Thank you. I'm the publisher of Potomac Local. I've been doing this journalism thing for 15 years here. We are members of the Virginia Press Association, where we took home the first place government reporting award for Potomac Local, and our website was ranked the #1 online-only news website, judged by its peers by the Virginia Press Association. Prior to that, I worked for NBC Washington, and here in Prince William, I covered breaking news, transportation, for the once we used to know it as News and Messenger, where I covered the execution of DC sniper John L. Muhammad. And I started in TV and News Channel 8, and then jumped over to this route. So now you know about us. Now we will introduce you to the candidates. Scott Surovell was elected as the state delegate for the 44th district in November 2009 and was sworn in on January 6, 2010. He currently serves on the Science and Technology Committee, the County, Cities, and Towns Committee, and the Militia, Police, and Public Safety Committee. In 2013, Scott was appointed by the minority leader to be the political director and campaign chairman for the House Democratic Caucus. In 2014, Scott was appointed the Speaker of the House to the Broadband Advisory Council. In September 2014, Surovell was elected to the #2 leadership position, House Democratic Caucus chairman, by the Democratic members of the House of Delegates. In 2014, Scott was appointed by the Speaker of the House to the Broadband Advisory Council. Welcome, Delegate Scott Surovell. Mayor Jerry Foreman was first elected to the town of Dumfries, the position of mayor, to serve in 2010. Jerry has served as he was served on the council, elected in 2010. He has served as mayor since 2012. Foreman is a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps who has been promoted through the ranks E1 to E7 WO to CWO3 captain and major, and during his service in the Corps he was stationed at HMX 1 Quantico, Virginia from 1981 to 83 and again from 89 to 92. Foreman is the owner of Foreman Aviation Services and Technologies, a college professor with Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, and he's taught aviation management, currently on sabbatical, and he is an aviation consultant with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security with the U.S. Coast Guard. Foreman has served as commissioner of the Northern Virginia Regional Commission and the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, representing the town of Dumfries. Welcome, Mayor Foreman. Our first question of the evening will go to Mayor Foreman. The question On the question of domestic violence, this is a two-part question.
Would you do the intro?
Well, if you'd like to do an intro, by all means, I forgot about that.
That's the first time we've collaborated together and we've agreed, all right?
I'd like to see that, so.
We'd like to see that more often.
Okay. Okay. So, who would like to go first?
Go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you for the introduction, Uriah, Professor Farnsworth. It's great to be here. I appreciate y'all putting this together. Professor, for taking the time off, and Uriah, for everything you do. Local news is very important. We don't have enough of it in Prince William County, North Virginia, and you perform a great service. I also want to thank my opponent, Mayor Foreman, for being here tonight and for stepping up and running. Running for office is not an easy thing. Myself, again, my name is Scott Surovell. I'm a member of the Virginia House of Delegates, 44th District, which is basically everything between the Wilson Bridge and Fort Belvoir, the Potomac River, and Telegraph Road. I'm a Northern Virginia native, born and raised in Fairfax County. My family moved to Fairfax County in 1935. My grandparents came down here from New York looking for work during the Great Depression. I went to West Potomac High School, graduated from West Potomac, went to James Madison University, attended law school at the University of Virginia School of Law, decided to come back home and hang a shingle in Fairfax County, work with my father in his law practice in Fairfax. Got married in 1999. My wife, Erin, my wife and I have now been married for 16 years. We have 4 children, 9th grade, 8th grade, 5th grade, 3rd grade. My wife's actually back to school night tonight, which I'm missing to be here today. I got 4 great kids, wonderful family. And back in 2009, I decided to step up and run for the House of Delegates because I was concerned about where my community was going. The Route 1 corridor part of Fairfax County. Since I was elected, my #1 priority has been the improvement of Route 1. Route 1, in my entire lifetime, had not seen any improvements in 40 years. I'd seen other parts of Fairfax County, other parts of Northern Virginia, see road widenings, investments in their schools, investment in their infrastructure. Nothing was going on in the part of the county I lived in. So the first thing I did was I sat down and met with the Northern Virginia Transportation District Administrator, gave him a tour of Route 1. It took us 2.5 hours to go about 14 miles. We came up with a plan, which was to create a study. I pushed that through with the help of Governor McDonald, with Senator Puller, Governor McDonald, Sean Connaughton, the former chairman of the Prince William County Board of Supervisors. We got that study funded. That took another year. And we came out with the Route 1 multimodal study, which recommended basically an entirely new vision for the Route 1 corridor from Wilson Bridge all the way down to Fort Belvoir. It gave us a roadmap to create a 14-mile long median dedicated bus rapid transit with a 2-mile metro extension in about 15 years. And I'm really excited about it. It's going to be really exciting for that part of Northern Virginia. And I think that's a lot of what we need down here. Route 1 corridor in Prince William County suffers.
30 seconds.
Got it. Suffers from a lot of the same problems that the part of Fairfax County does. We also need to invest in our schools. We need to expand Medicaid, and we need to deal with predatory lending. So I look forward to the questions we get tonight. It's going to be an exciting debate to think about the future of this community. I look forward to the questions and look forward to and having honest exchange on the issues here.
Thank you, Mr. Surovell. Mr. Foreman.
I'm Jerry Foreman. I'm the mayor for the town of Dumfries. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Thanks for being on my own. I'm running for the 36th District Senate seat. The district covers Fairfax, Prince William County, and Stafford. So that means there's 3 county board of supervisors, 3 school districts, and 3 towns. So that's 9 forms of local government, all competing for your tax dollars and all trying to work together. #1 issue that I'm working with is transportation as well. And that covers transit, roads, rails, and highways. A lot more goes into that. Of course, we talk commuter lots and a few other things. But if one node fails, the system fails. So we've got to make sure that these efforts are coordinated. We've done 12 years of studies. The 5-year study was the back end of the 12-year Route 1 study. And I think we've done too many studies. It's time for action. It's time to work with the Commonwealth Transportation Board, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and the Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organizations. I've done that as a member of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority, and I'll continue to do that. Second thing is education. It starts with our schools. It starts at the lowest level, from K all the way to 12th grade. They graduate, it dovetails into our colleges and our trade schools. Not everyone's made to go to college, but we know we need to do one thing. that's make sure that our workforce, it's developed and it's cohesive, and we're putting workers into the job arena that are skilled. And that means we're attracting businesses, and our businesses that come here have a base to which to work with. Economic development. We need to attract those businesses, but we need to work with our Chamber of Commerce, our towns, and our counties. As Senator, I'll do that. The solution to all the problems is not raising taxes. Richmond's pretty healthy with taxes. We need to make sure that the taxes that we're using, I mean, we're paying for them at the town, the county, the state, and the federal level. We need to make sure that Richmond's using those taxes wisely. And the last thing, this is about having a senator that's accessible, accessible to use daily. As mayor, I'm accessible, and as senator, I'll be accessible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Just a brief explanation about how what the questions and the questions we'll be asking. It's a mixture of reader-submitted questions to Potomac Local, as well as questions that Potomac Local and Dr. Farnsworth have formulated on our own. We will ask a specific question of a specific candidate. That candidate will have 3 minutes to answer, and then the second candidate will have 2 minutes to respond or to make a rebuttal. When we get down to the 30-second mark, I'll do as you heard me say, 30 seconds, and we have 30 seconds. Our first question this evening goes to Mayor Foreman. On the question of domestic violence, it's this two-part question. Would you support a bill to prohibit those convicted of domestic violence misdemeanors from possessing firearms or ammunition? For abusers, the second part, for abusers subject to a domestic violence protective order, would you support a restriction on the possession of a firearm as well as purchasing and transporting while the order, purchasing and transporting that firearm while the order is in effect?
Can you say the second part again?
For abusers to a domestic violence protective order, would you support a restriction on the possession of a firearm as well as purchasing and transporting that firearm while that order is in effect?
Yes. Yes. Domestic violence is it's a crime. It shouldn't happen. Just like pedophiles, sex offenders, and stalkers. We should make sure that they're in the database, they're entered, we know where they live, we know where they're located. And we need to make sure that domestic violence is not fair to the victim, it's certainly not fair to anybody. We need to make sure that they're educated, meaning when the crime happens, we need to make sure it's prevented. We need to make sure that our law enforcement is taking care of the situation properly.
And the first part of that question, would you support a bill to prohibit those convicted of domestic violence misdemeanors from possessing firearms or ammunition?
This is a tough one. I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment rights, but I don't think that someone convicted of a crime should be allowed to possess a weapon.
So you do not support?
Ask your question one more time. I'm saying that if they're convicted of a crime of domestic violence, they should not be allowed to have a weapon.
Gotcha. Mr. Surovell, 2 minutes.
Well, I think it's a great question. First thing I'll say is I think under federal law, there's already a provision that prohibits somebody convicted of domestic violence from possessing a weapon. State law, however, doesn't cover that. Because state law doesn't currently cover it, it creates a lot of problems in enforcement. So I think state law needs to be clarified to make it clear that under both federal and state law, anybody convicted of domestic violence should not be able to possess either a gun or ammunition. However, I also think that anybody convicted of anybody that is convicted of assault and battery, which Governor McCall pushed last year, that they also ought not to be able to possess a weapon. In addition to that, anybody who has any kind of protective order should not have a weapon or ammunition on them at any time. We expanded protective orders about 2 years ago to make them much easier to obtain for people who are not in domestic violence situations, people who are not related to each other. And I think any kind of protective order ought to be a bar on possessing weapons. And we've had a hard time getting any kind of further firearm restrictions through the Virginia legislature at all. And I'm happy to say that in the Militia, Police, and Public Safety Committee, I've voted for almost every single bill that's come through that I've had an opportunity to try and further restrict firearms rights in situations involving violence or crimes, magazine limits, to the extent I can. And I think that there are some common sense things we can do, like background checks and other things that we need to look at. unfortunately, in the current environment in Richmond, we can't seem to get any bills passed, even common sense ones like that were the subject to your question.
All right.
Next question goes first to Mr. Surovell. What are your views regarding marriage equality in Virginia, and what additional steps, if any, should be undertaken with respect to marriage equality in Virginia?
Well, I'm proud to say that I've been supportive of marriage equality since the day I was elected. I introduced legislation to remove Virginia's ban on marriage equality from our Constitution 3 years in a row. That legislation was rejected in committee every single time I put it in. I also introduced legislation to remove Virginia's statutory ban on marriage equality from the Code of Virginia, which was actually dates back to 1975. Virginia was one of the first states to ban gay marriage back in 1975 due to the actions of a clerk in Colorado way back then. I was the only one to put that bill in last year, or 2 years ago. Last year, a bunch of people copied me and put my bill in for me. It still didn't pass. I also have introduced language into the Virginia budget every single cycle to prohibit discrimination within state employment. I've introduced that as a floor amendment, and that's failed every single year. But I do not believe that the government should discriminate against anybody because of who they choose to love. The Supreme Court of the United States has spoken on this issue, and it's time we remove these vestiges of discrimination from our code and our Constitution. I've been happy to support that ever since I was elected.
No, I think Delegate Surovell said it right. The Supreme Court's made the determination of how this should go. I'm a Christian, and I firmly believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. That's the short end of it.
Our next question goes to Mayor Foreman. We've had several questions. I will say that we've had several questions about reducing or controlling gun violence come into Potomac Local, especially in light of recent news events the past week. So we'll ask a two-part question. What more can the state do, if anything, to curb gun violence? Should state legislators ask for more help from parents, mental health workers, school divisions, and the general public to aid in that effort to help curb gun violence? 3 minutes.
Well, gun violence isn't going to go away. I've been in the service, in the military. The first thing that we did when we talked about drugs, alcohol, we talked about violence in the military was we educate. And education's got to start at an early age, and it's got to be consistent. Second thing we need to do is enforce the laws we have on the books. We've got a whole bunch of laws on the books, and it seems to me that rather than be more restrictive and create new laws against law-abiding citizens, we need to go back to the basics and enforce the laws we have. It comes down to, first and foremost, education at an early age, working with our medical professionals, identifying potential hazards, potential problems, listening to the medical community. A lot of I should say there's been several examples where it could have been prevented early on had someone just listened. First and foremost, we do not want to take away any more Second Amendment rights, and that's the right to bear arms. That's in the Constitution as well. Thank you.
2 minutes, Mr. Surovell.
No constitutional right is unqualified. You can't scream fire in a crowded movie theater. You can't. The constitutional rights simply are not just completely unlimited. There's some very common sense things we can do in terms of reducing firearm violence. Number one, universal background checks are an easy one. Right now, you shouldn't have to go through a background check depending on where you buy the gun. If you buy it from a store, you buy it from some guy in the parking lot, or if you buy it on eBay, or you buy it at a gun show, you should still have to do a background check. Background checks have stopped millions of felons from buying guns in this country. And polling shows are supported by almost 90% of all Americans. And it's not clear to me why we can't just get simple laws like that passed where 90% of the public supports them, but we can't. Second thing is we need to have limits on magazines. Nobody needs to have a 30-bullet clip in a handgun while they're walking around. The only point of putting a 30-bullet clip in a handgun is to kill lots of human beings. It's not to protect yourself. Gerald used multi-bullet clips. So did the guy that shot Gabby Giffords. And these people would not be able to do as much damage if they did not have these weapons of such potency. Third thing is, I really think we need to look at limits on these assault rifles. You know, I still remember back when I was playing softball, back when my kids were little, standing around center field out in Arlington County, and I couldn't stand still. The reason I couldn't stand still was because there was a couple of snipers running around the Washington D.C. metro area taking shots at people, standing at gas stations and going to restaurants and living their daily lives. I didn't want to stand still because I didn't want to be a target. And the rifle they used to kill all those people was a Bushmaster AR-16, and that's been the weapon of choice for a lot of these mass murderers all over this country. We need to take these high-powered weapons away from people. You don't use it for hunting. You don't need it for shooting rabbits. I think we can have common sense rules that allow people to hunt and protect themselves.
Delegate, I'm going to take the liberty of asking a follow-up question. You said universal background checks. Is there any place that you can think of or name or talk about in Virginia, whether it be a gun store you mentioned or a guy on the street? Can you elaborate on where these background checks, people are going through loopholes, and where these checks are not being done and where they're not working?
Right now, you can buy a gun on eBay and not do a background check. You can buy a gun at a gun show from a person who is not a federally licensed firearms dealer and not go through a background check. You can do a private sale, whether that's between family members or if you felt like selling your gun to me, you're not required to do a background check before you give me that gun. So right now, if you're a felon and you can't buy a gun legally, all you got to do is go on eBay or go to a firearm show and find somebody who's not a licensed firearm dealer, and you can get that weapon.
And you would support that for transfers within family members as well?
Yes, I think everybody ought to be subject to a background check before they're given a gun. I mean, right now we have more restrictions on somebody trying to exercise their constitutional right to get an abortion than we do on buying something that'll kill a human being. And I don't understand why one constitutional right is so limited, yet another constitutional right is completely unrestricted in this country. To me, it doesn't make any sense.
They both kill a human being.
All right, appreciate that.
Okay.
This question, where do you stand on Medicaid expansion in Virginia? This goes first to Mr. Sir.
I've been 100% supportive of Medicaid expansion since the second it was proposed. The 36th Senate District has the second highest Medicaid population in all Northern Virginia. 16,000 kids today receive their health care in this district from the government via Medicaid. The reason those children get their health care from Medicaid is because their parents don't have health insurance. Medicaid expansion is designed to pick up those people, working low-income families. Studies have shown repeatedly that if we were to expand Medicaid, it would free up $180 million of your Virginia taxpayer dollars that we could then spend on other priorities like schools, higher education, public safety, etc. It is undeniable. The reason for that is because the federal government will pick up the cost of things that Virginia taxpayer dollars are currently paying for. It's simple math. It's been repeatedly validated. Additionally, Medicaid expansion will create 30,000 jobs. The Northern Virginia economy right now, or the Virginia economy, is 48th in the country for job growth. These other states, including over a dozen Republican-controlled states, have expanded Medicaid, and it's created jobs in those states. Obamacare also raised a series of taxes in order to fund things like Medicaid expansion. Virginians today are currently paying taxes, and those tax dollars are going to all these other states to fund their Medicaid expansions, but not coming back to Virginia. We're leaving billions of dollars on the table. We're leaving 30,000 jobs on the table. We're leaving health care on the table because people want to score political points. There's a 5-story building on top of Beacon Hill on Route 1 that is sitting there waiting to be filled with patients and filled with workers and give people the certainty that they can go home at night and not have to worry about whether they're going to be able to, if they get sick, whether they're going to be able to pay their bills. And I think it's inexcusable for this legislature and for the Virginia government not to expand Medicaid. And I'm looking forward to when we get back to having a serious and honest discussion about it, and not more of these political games being played over something to me which is a common sense, easy, smart thing to do. And again, the people that will benefit the most, one of the largest concentrations of people that benefit from the most are the people in this district that I'm going to represent. To me, there's just no argument against it.
2 minutes, Mr. Foreman.
Well, we've talked about the economy being the 48th out of our 50, and Medicaid, Affordable Care Act, Medicaid, Medicare, they're all tied together. You accept one, you accept the other. For every study that shows that we should do something, there's a study that says we shouldn't. I do agree with Delegate Surovell on one thing, and that's that partisan politics has stopped healthy dialogue. The CPAs did a study about 18 months ago, and they said, we're in this, but we better be in it together. And we're slowly accepting this, and there's businesses that have paid into this. It's not going away. It's going to come down the pipe. But we need to roll up our sleeves, and we need to figure out exactly what's acceptable, what's the minimum, and slow roll it in. Not accepting the dollars from the federal government right now, all right, that's a pushback. But that shouldn't be the pushback to stop dialogue. We need to start, we need to bring in our medical professionals, our business owners. We know what portion of the population needs medical care. And there's always going to be a population that is low to moderate income that can't afford it. But at the point right now we're at is when we flip the switch and we bring this in, it's going to be expensive. And our business owners are going to be the brunt, they're going to pick up the brunt of that. And they've already picked up a lot with taxes, with an economic plan that hasn't worked. We're 48th. Why do we want to pick up more? But it's going to take open and honest dialogue to figure out in stages what's minimal health care, what's the next step, and then who's picking it up. And we need to cross our state lines. And we need to make sure that the business enterprise can come in and take advantage of this too. Currently, it's only going to be within the state, and the businesses here will have to prosper within that. I do agree the 36th has a lot to be desired as far as our citizens that need it. But there's also rural communities that have to pick this up. And they got to pick it up at their own cost.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman. Next question is for you. Prince William County is investing millions of dollars into widening and improving Route 1. Yes, folks, they really are. Soon, 6 lanes of traffic with bottleneck as drivers cross into Fairfax County from Prince William County. And work to improve Route 1 in the town of Dumfries is still only in the discussion phase. We're not seeing a lot of work being done. We don't see orange cones in Dumfries either. What can we do to make sure the entire corridor from Stafford to Fairfax is improved? 3 minutes, Mr. Foreman.
That's a good question. $400 million is coming up from Richmond, has been released from Richmond. We're in competition for it. One district. You heard me say earlier, Prince William County, Fairfax, and Stafford. One district. The way it works now with 2313 is there's competitive points, and all projects have to get past a certain stage. But the ugly reality is Route 1 is one problem, but yet we've looked at Route 1 as a so regional that Fairfax has 3 projects going on Route 1, Prince William County has 2 projects going on Route 1, the town of Dumfries has 1. That's 6 projects competing for dollars. Every one of those projects is ranked against each other. The town of Dumfries project ranked very well in the last round. In fact, it ranked above Marumsco Plaza. But then Prince William County turned around and they made darn sure that they did eminent domain and they did underground wiring with Dominion Power. So suddenly their project is shovel ready. The town of Dumfries isn't. You have the problem with this district is, again, Fairfax, Prince William County, and Stafford, and then 3 towns. One town, the town of Dumfries, competes directly with Prince William County. We're paying taxes at the town level and the county level. So when the project at Marumsco Plaza is getting done with county dollars, I'm paying for that project. When the project is getting done in Dumfries, Prince William County's not. We need to fix that. That part of the system's broken. What I'm going to lobby for, when I'm your senator, is that any project done on Route 1 doesn't compete against each other. Any project is considered one project. You can't fix one hole and still have a problem someplace else and say that we're making progress. That's got to stop. The key here is to make sure that, first and foremost, transportation dollars are going where they need to go. The 80-20 split from 2313, it doesn't work when your jurisdiction doesn't have the same density as a Fairfax. The Route 1 corridor is a suburban corridor. It can't compete with any road that goes through Fairfax, I should say, and Manassas. Bigger jurisdiction, bigger dollars. Now on the playing field of the point system, it's level. But when it starts to get pointed out as to what traffic moves, we're always going to be at the bottom of the barrel. Now, we did secure $7 million, and that moves us forward. When we started this plan, it was 2030. Now we're at 2010. So we moved it up 10 years. And I have gone to Richmond, and I have talked to the Commissioner of VDOT. And we have coordinated with VDOT as to how to move this town forward. But the problem here, again, smaller jurisdictions aren't going to get the dollars. Now, let's put that in reverse. Northern Virginia is not getting their fair share. There's a lot of rural areas receiving dollars, and that point system needs to be fixed.
Thank you. 2 minutes, Mr. Surovell.
So, first of all, I think it's important that everybody needs to understand what our system is, how the system works. Because first, I heard the mayor say a second ago that we've had too many studies. Just so we're clear, you are legally required to have studies before you can do a widening. You cannot do a widening without a study. That's kind of how the law works. And it's not just state law, that's also federal law, right? So the reason we did a study on my part of Route 1 is because we had to. If we didn't, then we couldn't do anything, okay? So the first thing you have to do is make sure you've done your homework and you do your studies. Right now, we've done our homework, we've done our studies. The reason the widenings are happening right now in Prince William County is because Senator Puller did her homework. And she started putting study bills in 1993 that laid the groundwork for Prince William County to do their widenings today. Fairfax County, however, couldn't get their act together and agree on anything, which is why I put my bill in. We did our studies, and now we have a roadmap, which is why we just got $16 million in January to actually start funding more projects, doing preliminary engineering and environmental work for our widenings in Fairfax County. So you have to understand the process. After you've done your studies, to get the money, you have to go through HB2's rating process. That's the system we have. That's the law we just passed, and these projects have to compete against each other because that's the law. And there's nothing I can do to stop that unless I get 140 people and the governor to change the law, which isn't going to happen because we just passed it. So that's the system we have. What the 36th district senator has to do is fight. And if there's anything my record for the last 6 years has shown, is that I fight and I fight hard. And I don't care if I have to fight with Republicans or I have to fight with Democrats. I called the Democratic Board of Supervisors in Fairfax County, including my own supervisor and the neighboring supervisor, on the carpet for not fighting hard enough. Because I saw all this money going to Tyson's and nothing coming to Route 1. And Senator Puller and I stood up and fought. We made some people angry, but guess what? As soon as we did, the money started to come and the attention started to come, and Route 1 finally got dealt with. And that's what I'll do if I'm elected.
Thank you, Delegate.
This question goes first to Mr. Surovell. There's been growing talk in this country about police wearing body cameras when interacting with the public and making arrests. What are your views about this? Should there be a state law? Should there be a law that affects urban jurisdictions like some of those within the district? What is your view on whether or not police should be required to use body cameras when interacting with the public?
Well, first of all, I practice law for a living, and part of my practice is I do criminal defense. And I've seen a lot of this where the rubber hits the road. I can't tell you how many clients I've had who feel like they've been targeted because they're driving while black, or other people who feel like they've been driving while Hispanic, or stopped for some other reason. And I tell you, in Fairfax County, we've had it's been interesting. Over the last year, we've really had a sea change in court because every single police vehicle now has a camera on the dashboard. It has completely changed the way cases get processed and cases get tried, because all of a sudden people realize that the police officer's recollection of what happened is not perfect, because we actually have a video that records exactly what was said and what hasn't. And we've had a lot of cases that get resolved a little bit differently because things are all now on the record, and it's a lot easier to figure out what happened in a case. So I've seen firsthand what cameras can do, not body cameras, but cameras in cars. It's really changed things overnight. And I'm fully supportive of body cameras because I think everything's shown that when people are on the record, when there's cameras on, thanks Aaron, that people behave better, they treat each other better, and you avoid conflicts about what happened. Prince William County, I think, is the first jurisdiction in Northern Virginia to spend some real money on body cameras. I think the Board of Supervisors appropriated $2 million. Fairfax County is way behind. Stafford hasn't done anything. And I think part of this is because, number one, it costs a lot of money. There isn't a lot of money around right now still. But also there's a lot of uncertainty. The state, Secretary Moran, the Secretary of Public Safety, is currently studying this to come up with some rules and some guidelines and to try to come up with some model practices that other jurisdictions can use to implement body camera systems. But I think the state needs to do everything it can to start the process of bringing body cameras as soon as possible. And not just with policies and procedures and laws, but we also need to come up with some cash so that these localities aren't forced to fund it all themselves. I think if the state could exercise its purchasing power and have some standardization, we could probably save taxpayers a lot of dollars rather than leaving up to 130 jurisdictions to do it all on their own. So I think we need to do this. It's clear in this country, given what you've seen, that there's a problem out there. The problem needs to be addressed, and that if we had body camera systems, I think it would do a whole lot to make a lot of people feel more comfortable about law enforcement interactions, and I think it would avoid a lot of conflict.
2 minutes.
I'm not going to give a long-winded answer. I'm not from Richmond yet. Let's talk straight to the point. Absolutely. Behavior is corrected when it's watched, unless, of course, you're on the town council. Then you have to go back and remember what you said and look at it. But law enforcement's a little bit of a different game. Law enforcement, those cameras, they're there to, first and foremost, protect the police officers and make sure that they're doing the right things and there's not false accusations. The second thing, it's there to protect the citizen, and it's making sure that their rights are protected as well. So absolutely. I don't think it should be an unfunded mandate. I think the locality should work together. Talking to the mayor of Blacksburg when he had his crisis back there, or down there recently, at the VML conference I attended last year, one of the things that they talked about was uniformity amongst the police and law enforcement. Everything from radio bands to the way they communicate to the uniforms they wear. And absolutely, I'm all for it.
Next question is for Mayor Foreman. Prince William County just endorsed a feasibility study to examine what it would take to bring Metro here to Prince William County. Given a recent dip in ridership at Metro and all the problems Metro has maintaining its current system, do we really need to extend Metro to Prince William?
Absolutely. The town of Dumfries took some action on a letter supporting Congressman Conley a couple months back, but we only supported Congressman Conley with the fact that let's explore all modes of transportation. And I think one of the councilmen recommended that the Metro come down to Fort Belvoir. So first and foremost, all modes of transportation need to be explored, not just the Metro. But if we're going to buy into the Metro, we're going to inherit their costs, and I think that's what Prince William County's main concern was. Metro's a good thing. I think that when it starts to come down this direction, we're going to have to buy into the infrastructure, and it's going to cost some money. We need to be very careful, because then we start talking eminent domain. We want to protect our owners' property rights, but it's a proven fact that Metro grows business. We also have the third rail that's being put in. Heard today, and I believe Delegate Surovell and I are on the same sheet of music. I was stationed overseas. I saw the high-speed rail. I experienced high-speed rail. We need to explore all our options, from our waterways to our Metro. But we need to take care of it slowly, methodically, and not do things twice. That's the key.
Mr. Surovell.
Well, I'm happy to say that I've been consistent on this from day one. I've been the Metro extender supporter from the second I was elected. It's been my vision for the Route 1 corridor, extending the yellow line and extending the blue line. Unlike my opponent, who I think may have opposed it early on when he's on town council. We have a councilman who can answer that question for us. But Metro, folks, is where all the action is going to be for the next 20 years. All the studies say there's 2 million people coming to the DC metro area over the next 20 years. 2 million people coming to the entire area. The question is, where are they going to live? Right? They're either going to live in farm fields in Stafford, in Fauquier, Loudoun County, out there in undeveloped land. We're going to chew up some more land and have to figure out some way to build more roads and widen our existing roads. Or they're going to live on top of where people live today. And what the experience has shown for the last 10 years is that metro transit-oriented mixed-use development is extremely popular. It's where all the new residents want to live today. People are tired of the commutes, they're tired of driving, they're tired of being stuck in traffic. They want to live close to where they work, they want to live close to where they shop, they want to live close to their restaurants. When you look at where the jobs are going, Marriott is relocating their headquarters right now. And one of their criteria is it has to be near a metro station. That's why they're leaving Maryland, moving to the Silver Line. It's because all the best workers all want to live off a metro station. There's a federal agency that just they're moving from Crystal City. They're moving out to Alexandria, right off the not Franconia, but off the Van Dorn metro station because they found cheaper rent. They're moving there because they need metro. Prince William County is not even in competition for FBI because Prince William doesn't have a metro. And if we're going to get jobs to Prince William County so we can get the tax burden down on residential homeowners, get jobs close to people's houses, we have to get high quality transit down here as soon as possible. And I'm supportive of doing anything we can to get metro down here as soon as we can.
I'm going to ask a follow-up question first to, and it's the same question to both of you, obviously. You have 1 minute to respond. Let's say, hypothetically, that the metro extension goes to Potomac Mills. Should it be the blue line, or should it be the yellow line? 1 minute, Mr. Foreman.
All right, first off, your statement's totally inaccurate. I have supported expansion of all transportation modes to Prince William County. So one councilman that disagrees with me on the dais doesn't go too far. It should be the blue line. And we need to make sure that if we're buying into this, we're buying into it holistically. And the costs need to make sure that it's weighed out. And that's first and foremost. To sit here and say that I don't support all modes of transportation, I think I've been pretty consistent in exactly what I said. What I told the town council, and you can go back and watch Granicus. It's right there. What I said was, I support Congressman Conley's efforts, but it continues to escalate in cost. And also, Delegate Torian passed requested the same thing down south, but he wanted to create tax zones for transportation. I'm not for creating more taxes, which seems to be a mantra that you're really good at proposing. I don't want to increase taxes. I want to use the taxes we have wisely.
Mr. Surovell, yellow or blue?
My answer to that is whatever gets it here fastest. As I said, because we've been doing our homework right now in the 44th district, we've got plans on the map that show the feasibility of extending the yellow line down the Iowa Valley right now today. Fort Belvoir employs more people in the United States Pentagon today. There are 80,000 cars that go on and off that base every day. It's one of the largest employment centers in all of Northern Virginia. And it needs metro. It needs either the yellow line or blue line to get there. So right now I know we can get yellow at least as far south as Iowa Valley, and that's been blessed, approved, it's been blessed and looked at as being feasible. Blue line, nobody's done anything. And so blue line is 5 years behind the yellow line. And so I'm willing to do whatever it takes to get either of them down here as soon as possible. We need to start doing those feasibility studies on the blue line as soon as possible and get Fairfax and Prince William both to the table at the same time to start talking about how to get it done.
This question goes first to Mr. Surovell. When the Democrats were in the majority in Richmond, they drew the district lines to help Democrats. When the Republicans were in the majority in Richmond, they drew the lines to help Republicans. Do you favor nonpartisan commissions drawing lines to maximize electoral competition in Virginia?
Since the day I was elected, I've been 100% supportive of nonpartisan redistricting. Senator Puller told me about the first time she did redistricting when she was in the majority back in, I guess it was right around 2000, I think it was. She told me that basically they were all sitting around with a bunch of note cards with precincts on it, and they were all sitting in a room together, and they'd have to trade precincts, and so they would trade note cards with each other, and somebody with a calculator would sit down and try and recalculate things, and every time they traded a note card, it would take 5 or 10 minutes to figure it out, balance things out. It was just an incredibly cumbersome, long, burdensome process. The problem today is that these computers have made redistricting so potent and so powerful and so predictive of electoral outcomes that it has really poisoned our democracy. If there was one thing that I could fix in American democracy to try and get not just the legislature to be a more reasonable place, the United States Congress back on track, it's redistricting. Because the way the districts are drawn today, they are so either hyper-democratic or hyper-republican that most people's exposure in an election, most elected officials' exposure once elected, is in a primary. So if you're a Republican, all you have to worry about is winning a Republican primary, which means you cater to folks on one side of the aisle, or you cater to your voters on one side to make sure you don't get Tea Party. This is what's been driving, and why we haven't been able to get anything done in Richmond. And if you're on the left, it's the same thing. The same thing happens in Democratic seats. It's really unfortunate because it has poisoned our democracy. So I'm fully supportive of anything. Actually, I'm not supportive of bipartisan redistricting. I think bipartisan redistricting is just the same thing we have. A species is the same thing we have. What I think we ought to have is nonpartisan redistricting. That is, people who have no part of the system. We don't have elected officials at the table. I think you have citizens do it. Alternatively, I think all you really have to have is a computer do it. You just got to tell the computer what your variables are. Minimize jurisdictional splits. Try and keep districts within counties or cities as much as possible. Watch out for major geographic boundaries or interstates like I-95, or look out for rivers, and maximize contiguity and compactness. Keep communities together. I mean, Jerry and I were talking today about how crazy the 36th district is drawn. There's not a major road in this district where either the 36th district is on one side or the other, but never on both. And it's almost impossible to go around and try and collect signatures to run for this district because it's impossible to find a grocery store where everybody walking in the door is actually from the 36th district. It's something that we really have to change, and it's really a problem that's at the heart of our democracy, and I'm fully supportive of getting it straightened out. I think it's really the #1 problem in American democracy today.
This is about fair representation. The 36th district is unique. Stafford, when it was redistricted, I think Senator Puller even made the comment, I didn't even know Stafford was in the district. This is hard, especially when you talk transportation. Economic development, we can talk. Jobs, we can talk. Fixing some of the things with our county governments, we can talk. But when you have Stafford in there, it's not a player of the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority. That's hard. That's hard. They're not considered Northern Virginia. The Walmart, when you just drive over the hill, right around. I think our Delegate Surovell's opponent for the primary stood outside Walmart and got signatures. A good third of them, fourth of them, weren't even good. It's hard. The old district, it didn't go down to Stafford. And you could pretty much you could say that we have waterways. Our waterways are part of our issues. But now you go into Fairfax, that's right against the water, and the 36th district has no waterways. They've got some creeks that go through it, streets that go through it, but you can't talk hydrilla infestation to the extent that you can down in Prince William County. Yes, priority. Yes, nonpartisan. Yes, computers. But again, put the parameters in, let it spit it out. The population will take care of itself. The dynamics are going to change. It's going to go Democrat, Republican. A few years later, it's going to go Republican, Democrat. This is the wave. But part of being the democratic process, the political process, is you've got to work with your constituents. And that's what makes it unique. And that's what makes it fun.
We'll move now to closing statements. Each of you has 3 minutes. And because you were so friendly at the beginning, I think we'll let you decide who goes first.
Go ahead. I've been closing all day. I'll follow you. I'm going to love to say a few things.
That was fast. Yeah, quick debate. Well, first of all, thank you for, I want to once again thank the Potomac Local for putting this debate together, Professor Farnsworth for your participation, taking time away from your family and your job to be here tonight, and I want to thank everybody else for showing up tonight. I'm going to thank my opponent again for running. It's a sacrifice from your family and from your job, and I want to thank you all for coming tonight, being interested in your community, to come out and hear your two sides of this race. I've been serving the people of the 44th District now for 6 years, and I think the results that I've accomplished speak for themselves. What I've got accomplished on Route 1 is going to be transformational. It's laid the groundwork for years of success and growth in the 44th District. I want to bring that same kind of growth and that same kind of the same tenacity I brought to getting Route 1 improved in my part of Fairfax County, down here to Prince William County and Stafford. This district suffers from a lot of the same problems on the entire stretch of road. One of the things we didn't talk about tonight is schools. Our education funding in Virginia is awful. The Virginia legislature is currently funding K-12 education at lower than 2005 levels on a per pupil inflation adjusted basis. We cannot continue to educate our children. We're not funding our schools. That's going to be my #1 priority. Public education got me where I am today, all the way through college, all the way through law school. Virginia taxpayers helped me get to where I am today. And we owe that to all of our citizens and all of our children. Route 1 schools all need help. There are, I think, over 300 trailers in the 36th district up and down this corridor. Prince William schools are the most overcrowded schools in the entire, not just Northern Virginia, the entire DC metro area. Prince William school overcrowded and out of control. Teacher salaries are inadequate. Early childhood education is non-existent. We have to fix these problems if we're going to have a workforce in the future. Third thing we need to do is we need to expand Medicaid. I don't waffle about that. I don't qualify it. We need to get it done. It's very simple. It takes a very short bill to do it. It shouldn't take any negotiation. In fact, it'll free up $180 million that we can spend. You think everybody would jump all over themselves to say, give me that $2 billion so we can free up that $180 million and have more money to spend. I don't know why we're still fighting about that. Fourth thing that I think we need to really focus on, which we haven't talked about much today, is this predatory lending, which is completely out of control in the Route 1 corridor. There are 21 car title lenders between Quantico Marine Corps Base and the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. 21. Loan Max, Title Max, and Cash Flow. These businesses, folks, lend money to people at an interest rate of 30% per month. That comes out to 264% per year. I think that's immoral. I think it should be illegal. We either need to cap their interest rates out at 36%, like every other bank has to deal with, or we should just put them out of business, like we did the payday lenders. We basically told the payday lenders 36%. They said, we can't make money, and they left. Well, we need to do something similar with car title lenders. If anybody's been listening to the stories on NPR this week, you'll hear it. We need to do something about it. Is that my time up? Okay. So having said that, those are some of the things I want to do. I appreciate the ability to be here and exchange ideas tonight. Ask for your vote on November the 3rd. Thank you again for your attention. Happy to stick around and shake hands afterwards and talk to anybody that has any other questions.
After closing statements, we'll move on to Mr. Scarborough in 1 second, but I do want to give Mr. Foreman the floor for his closing statements.
Thank you. I'd like to quantify one statement made earlier, and Delegate Surovell stuffed it right down my throat the wrong way. 12 years of a study is too hard, too long. Don't be naive. When I say we don't want studies and it's time for action, House Bill 2313, House Bill 599, House Bill 2 monies, they all demand studies, but they demand them in a short time frame. And they're focused. They talk about what's being done and how it affects other areas of the region when your transportation goes into place. A 5-year study, a 12-year study, way too long. That's a product of too much Richmond and not enough locality. Pick up the brochures that are out there tonight. Visit the website. You'll know what I stand for, and you'll see the comparisons between Delegate Surovell and myself. This election is about voters coming together. Nonpartisan. One district. Yes, there's Democrats and there's Republicans, and be proud of being a Democrat. Be proud of being a Republican. But when your senator's elected, they're going to have to represent everybody. Dumfries is 70% Democrat, and I've won the last 2 elections as mayor with over 60% of the vote. That shows that I can work in a nonpartisan manner. Everyone matters. No one is going to be left behind. Your chance to make a difference in this election is great. This is an off year, so one vote matters. I can't promise you anything but to represent your interests. I've done that as mayor, and I want to do that as your senator. I have fought for your interest as a Marine, as a councilman, and as a mayor. And I have no problem fighting for your interests as your senator. Knock on my door. Call me. My address is listed. It's not unlisted. It's there for everybody. I'm accessible. My phone number is listed. I welcome you in my office and in my home. Come visit me at my front door. I'd love to sit on the front porch and talk about the issues. I guess that's the way mayors work, and they understand how business is done. They're part of the community. This election is about you, working for you and working with you. Every one of you, Democrat, Republican alike. This is about representing you and about representing your interests. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for both candidates.